Hi everyone. This morning we're talking about car travel and traveling problems that you have with your dog. So first off, why it tends to happen, it's not at all an uncommon problem. So if you are having issues, you are absolutely not alone. So puppies have a very critical early stage of development up until they are 16 weeks. And it's during that time they learn almost more than they'll learn in the rest of their lives put together, and they need to get positive experience of all the things that are going to form part of their adult life. And for a lot of dogs, their first experience in the car is combined with car sickness. It's not at all uncommon, just due to slow development of the inner ear and balance. But it can also be simply unpleasant for them because they are separated from you. It's something they don't have a lot of experience of and they don't enjoy it. So that's kind of your early development stuff. With rehomed and rescue dogs, you don't know what's happened previously. And sometimes there can be trauma in the dog's life that is somehow triggered by going in the car. It may be that there is pain on entry or exit from the vehicle. We quite often expect our dogs just to jump in, and especially if the boot's got a lip that goes kind of up and over and down, it can actually be quite a big jump. And if you've done puppy training up at the paddock, you will know the first time you ask them to go up and over an A-frame or through a tunnel, they're generally a little bit reluctant, and yet we can sometimes ask them to do strange jumps into a car. Jumping onto the back seat in particular is a hard one. So there are lots of reasons why it can come up as an issue, and the reason it tends to become an issue is partly what's going on for the dog, but it's partly what is going on for us. So we, as a car driver, have a statutory obligation to make sure our dog is appropriately restrained in a crate or with a secure car harness, or even behind a grill in the boot area. So we have to provide separation, and we also have to concentrate on driving the car. So this means, especially for young puppies or newly rehomed dogs, they literally don't know what's going on, and they're separated from you. So it's not a great experience for them. And you also then are going to struggle to meet their needs for reassurance because you are driving. So if you've got issues with your car, it can be quite difficult to unpick what you've got going on, because pain, fear, sickness, phobia, it can all look like the dog's being stubborn. It can be quite hard to tell what is going on. So if you've got a significant issue with the car, it is worth just having a chat with me, letting me watch your dog get in and out, or make an appointment if it's a big issue. Because if it's pain, my first dog, Jess, she developed a phobia of the car, and with hindsight, I suspect she was in pain. She developed arthritis very young. She'd been over-exercised, not by me, I hasten to point out. And she probably found it hard getting in and out of the car, but what it presented as is a dog who was just refusing entry. There was no obvious signs of pain, like whining, shaking, or anything like that. So it can be hard to tell, but if your dog is panting or drooling or trying to pace in the car, that would be a sign that either they're feeling very, very sick, or they're really, really anxious. So if you're not sure what's going on, do get a little bit of help. And if you suspect sickness is a huge part of it, yes, have a chat with a behaviourist, but also go and have a chat with your vet, because actually getting them on anti-sickness medication might be the first step to this. So you've got a tricky problem in that you don't quite know ever exactly what the underlying cause is. You're unable to physically comfort your dog when you're driving or be with them, and you're often a little bit rushed and short for time. So you might not bring your best self to dealing with that issue. So what can you do? So there's a range of equipment which you might consider. So ramps and or steps to get in and out of the car. A car crate may help. And the anti-sickness medication I've mentioned, if you think it's appropriate. And the other thing that might help you equipment-wise is having 2 handlers instead of 1. And when you start out trying to tackle this issue, if you're bringing ramps, crates, and steps into the equation, you absolutely have to train them quite separately from the car. No dog has ever gone, oh, a wobbly ramp that's attached to the car. The car that I was afraid of anyway now has a wobbly ramp. Oh, great. You got to train it in the house. So if you have a step, use it to get on and off the sofa. Do pause up on it in the house. Bring the ramp in the house. Eat treats off it. And use the dog to do simple exercises in the house where they go up the ramp onto the sofa or a chair and then down the ramp, checking that they don't jump off, and that loads of treats, just simply loads, until those steps and that ramp, as soon as they appear, the dog's like, goody, I get to go and do this fun game. If you're using a crate in the car, oh, excuse me, if you're using a crate in the car, you absolutely need to train that in the house as well first. I think a crate is a good solution for many dogs in the car. If you want to train a crate, again, that's a fairly big piece of work, but essentially if you have the crate by your chair in the evening and keep dropping treats into it, make sure they have lots of Kongs in the crate, lots of games running in out of the crate, fetching a ball, whatever floats your boat for your particular dog. You probably need to train your car crate for 2 or 3 weeks before you put it in the car. And some people find that a covered crate gets a better response. I'm on the fence. I think for some dogs, it does give you a better response, and the dog can relax a little bit more. I think the main thing is it should be super snooky and cuddly and not just a cage. So if you can get cot bumpers or a bit of soft bedding in it, provided you haven't got a very young puppy who's going to try and eat it, which is what Annie is currently doing with all her bedding. So I have to use cotton blankets or towels for her. So you do need to train it separate from whatever you're using, separate from the car. If it's a car harness and a box, again, bring it in, play with it on the sofa, eat lots and lots of treats. If you've got an issue and you really want to tackle it, the best way to tackle it is to find a time where you really aren't going to have to go on any car trips. And certainly, if there is a trip you need to make, you have got gallons of spare time and a helper to help you with the trip. Because desensitization to any issues your dog is having is simply not going to work if twice a week you traumatize them by driving them somewhere in the car. So once you've got your ramp and your steps and your car crate and you've trained it all and you've got it set up, ideally you've got the car parked off-road somewhere, and you do lots of little practice runs of going up the steps, looking in the back of the car, coming down the steps, going up the steps, doing pause up on the back of the car, coming down the steps, and you'd work towards going up the steps and going in the car for a treat. Now, if you're in training and you've got a behaviour where your dog will go on their mat from a distance, you might want to pop the mat in the back of the car with a treat on it, and they might execute the behaviour straight up the steps and into the back of the car. And then when they get in the back of the car or on the back seat, to start with, just going to give them a Kong, give them a lick mat, let them enjoy it and get them out again. So over the first week, you'd be working towards them being able to get in the car and spend duration in the car and get out again. And then depending on the dog, you're then going to have to get them used to the boot being closed. For some dogs, simply reaching up as if you're going to touch the boot will be enough for them to start to panic. So you might just half touch the boot and get them just used to you touching it, and then half closing it, and then gradually close it and open it again. Now, if your dog's good with licky mats and Kongs in the back of the car or in their box, then if they stop eating, it's a good sign that you've gone too far too quickly. So by the end of the second week, I would suggest if you've done a little bit of this every single day and you've kept calm and you haven't frightened your dog, then you'd be able to close the boot, give them a Kong, get them back out again, or snuffle mat or whatever you're using by the end of the second week. You then need to work on starting the engine, letting it run, turn it off, start it, let it run, turn it off while the dog's in the car. And then you might just move it forwards, backwards, put the handbrake on all the time while they're engaged in a lick mat or a Kong. So you're busy building positive associations at this stage. And you might, at this stage, get to the point where you can actually come off the drive up the road, come back again, as long as it's fairly quick and they're engaged with a Kong or a lick mat. However, you're going to have to reach a point where the Kong or the lick mat is going to run out and your dog needs to be comfortable. So all the work so far, you've got loads and loads of treats going on, and you got to a point where you might have a snuffle mat and a lick mat that gets you round the block and back, and the dog on balance is tolerating it. You've got no barking, howling, panting, drooling, no vomiting. And the dog's getting in and out happily. The next stage, see, and this is where you've had 3 weeks already of this, the next stage is to start to reduce the enrichment toy, or certainly reduce the value of it, and introduce slightly longer journeys. So it could be if you've had to use chicken and liver paste, that you're going to come down to using kibble in a Kong or in a snuffle mat, and check that you can still just go round the block. And you will then need to work very carefully to increase the length of the journey. And if you're able to do this every single day and give it half an hour every single day, what you would aim to do is increase the journey length by, let's say, 20% a day, as long as the dog doesn't get triggered. So given all the work you've put in up to this point, what you don't want to do is go, oh, I've got a minute in the car, it's fine, I'm going to go on a 20-minute journey, because you will undo all of the good that you've done. So you then do need to spend the time doing a minute and a quarter, a minute and a half on your journey. And if you need to start with a second handler in the car, just to make sure that if your dog starts to panic, you can reassure them. So that's a little bit of an entry point into car difficulties. It is going to take a little bit of time. So if you want to tackle it, pick a time when you don't have other issues going on. And if you do have to make an urgent trip out with your dog, try and do it in a completely different way. So if they usually would go in the boot in a crate, have them sit in the back on a harness with someone with them, feeding them treats, so that during the period you're working on this, you're not going to re-traumatize them. And if you've developed an issue and you have multiple dogs, if it's a fear-based issue, then it may be valid to bring another dog into that equation. So puppy Annie, who is noisily playing at my feet, she was a stinker the first few journeys. She was well, she seemed furious. If a puppy border collie can seem furious, and in the end I did put her in a crate with Lawrence, who did not say cheers mum, that's great, but she stopped trying to eat her way out of her crate straight away. So yeah, older dogs will demonstrate to younger dogs that if the dog has a survival fear, that actually it's all okay, but it does only work if it's, a significant survival fear or previous trauma. So, it's a valid thing if you want to work on it. Sometimes things like getting Brandon or Lawrence to jump into your car is a way of demonstrating to your dog that actually it's all cool, it's fine. We do the same with tunnels at the paddock. If the dog's frightened to run in a tunnel, you show them that another dog runs in one end and blow me down, they come out the other. You don't die in the interim. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them and I will get back to you all. And if you watch this on replay, if you can leave me a hashtag replay in the comments, that would be fantastic too. See you all soon. Bye.